Hello, dirty trucking. This video is going to be about my take on the trucking industry, being a female and just being in the industry. First and foremost, I'm going to start out by saying that the trucking industry has been the most stressful industry I've ever incurred in my history of work employment. I've got in the commercial industry driving passenger buses, got over into the plant manufacturing, but far out of everything I've dabbled in my years, and I'm 52, and trucking has been the most stressful industry I've ever occurred. My take on the industry, I don't like the current situations. I don't like what's going on in the industry. The things that I've noticed, the things that have happened to me, I know have greatly contributed to loss of drivers out there, aggravated drivers. The industry just needs a complete overhaul. And it's starting my most, I want to say, the ones that gave me the most problem out there were after signing on to a company and dealing with the dispatchers, the pre-planners, and per se fleet managers who's quote unquote nothing but a dispatcher. That's where the stress became involved. And then their equipment I was dealing with. Company driving out there, the breakdowns, you're down, you don't make any money. They pay you downtime, but it ain't nothing compared to what you would have made if you were actually running. But being an independent, when I crossed over the independent contracting of it, it just heightened the frustration, the aggravation. And these are things that has contributed to a lot of drivers' mental health, physical, mental conditions. Look at me. Just look at me. Look how I am. I'm perfectly fine, perfectly fit. But due to the DOT standards, they would deem somebody like me who physically able, I can move, jump, do all that, squat, lift some shit. They would deem me unfit because of their DOT standards. That DOT physical, they would use that to deem you unfit. But look at me. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm a physical able body to work. And whoever generated those requirements of the DOT physical was obviously never a truck driver. And you have never experienced the stress that comes with being a truck driver. Trucking is a very stressful industry. They need to tweak those requirements if you want to retain your best drivers. Because these drivers are out here dealing with adverse road conditions, aggravating and frustrating conditions due to the equipment they're driving, maybe something going on with the load, or something going back and forth with the planner, their dispatcher they're working with. And whoever is doing these requirements with the DOT physical is ridiculous. Somebody like me, if I was to go, doing these physicals, somebody looked like me, they would say, I'm not capable or fit to drive a truck, but yet I am. Somebody like me. There's nothing wrong with me. If I can get in a car and drive it, I can get in a truck and drive it. But they would say somebody like me. Look. Somebody like me. And that's what they've been using with these physicals. Those DOT physicals has become nothing but a market for money in the industry. They've targeted drivers. I've noticed some things going on in the industry with those physicals that shouldn't be. This sleep apnea stuff, talking about your neck contributing to you fall asleep. I never heard no shit like that before in my life till I got in trucking. What do your neck have to do with you fall asleep? I think it's your eyes and your brain and your fatigue that contributes to you falling asleep. Now, some folks that do have sleep apnea need to be regulated and monitored. Because though, you can see those people are very obvious. Because you can talk to them like 2 seconds and they damn fall asleep. I've run into people like that. That's not me. They tried to get me with a DOT physical on sleep apnea. Me. I've never fallen asleep in my life. You look up my driving record. I mean, it is like ridiculous. The things they were doing and trying to get me out of the trucking industry. And that's what they do. They use that. The majority of the drivers probably have been lost due to the physicals and due to the companies. Then the rest was trickling down due to those DOT physicals. Whoever designed that requirements for that DOT physical, you were not a driver. You have not been out there dealing with what we had to deal with on the road, over the highway. You were not. You couldn't have. It is the most stressful industry there is. And how they expected a truck driver's blood pressure to be normal. You in adverse driving conditions. You're dealing with stress and aggravation damn near every day. You're dealing with breakdowns. You're dealing with equipment issues. You're dealing with load issues. You're dealing with company issues. It is a very stressful industry. Very stressful. But your regulations and requirements in that physical, fuck that blood pressure reading. When I got into trucking, and like I said, this is a true story. Prior to me getting into trucking, I was my heaviest weight. I was going to the doctor, getting checkup physicals, heaviest weight. There was no signs of high blood pressure. I've never had high blood pressure in my life. And they can check that fact by searching my medical history. The weight I was at the time was no different. I've been at my heaviest weight before I even got into trucking. And when you get into trucking, if you're not physically active, your weight just goes up, up, and up. But I was at my heaviest weight before I got into trucking. I had absolutely no signs of high blood pressure. I've never had high blood pressure. And my blood pressure was always extremely, extremely low, normal. Until I crossed over into trucking. So what was going on? Was this a game? Is it that because I got into trucking now I got to participate in the scams of trucking with those DOT physicals? Because, if they reduce your physical, if you're not able to secure a 2-year physical, they reduce your physical, which means whatever your state charging for that physical, if they give you a 1 year, okay, now at the end of that year, you got to go back. Like I said about my current physical that I took last year, December, I qualified for a 2-year. They still gave me a 1 year. This is what they've been doing. Using the DOT physicals to act like you're my physician, my doctor. You're not. There is nothing wrong with me by any physical standards that say I can't drive any vehicle, do any function of a vehicle. I'm not in a wheelchair. I'm not handicapped. I don't have casts I don't have a brace on my leg. I don't have anything. But according to those DOT requirements for that physical, somebody like me will end up forced out of the industry because of their requirements. You are not a driver when you made those requirements. And your requirements that you are making are forcing good drivers out of the industry. You're not dealing with the stress of the industry. You have not focused on what's causing the aggravation. And you can't stop it. That is a part of trucking. The only ones that can stop that portion is the owner of that trucking fleet. taking control of their management team that they have that's interacting with the drivers, making sure that they're not stressing their drivers out, making sure that if they have an issue, okay, you're going to have issues when you cannot control your composure. You're going to blow up. That's in trucking. There's a lot of drivers that blew up at dispatchers. I done heard some hard tales of what done happened to dispatchers out there from drivers just because the dispatcher was so insensitive to the needs of that driver that driver felt, hey, it was time to take another step to let you know I'm a human being and respect me as a driver. And I've heard the horror stories out there. Horror stories. I've heard stories of a dispatcher getting dragged through the dispatch office by a driver. I've heard those stories out there. And that happens when you disrespect us, belittle us, and treat us like we not more important than you, when we were the most important person at that company. The drivers are. It ain't that dispatcher. It ain't even the owner. It ain't the planners. It's the driver. Because without truck drivers, you have no company. You will exist. You will have a building. You will have trucks in your yard. But you ain't going to have nobody to drive them. So my take on the trucking industry, it has been very stressful. To the point where I still have a lot of good years behind me in trucking. Ahead of me in trucking. I have a lot of good years that was behind me. I have a lot of good years still ahead of me. But due to the constant stress, the aggravation that is caused dealing with interactions of other people in the business of trucking, it is making me need to get out of trucking. It has contributed to unnecessary medical conditions. It has contributed to hostile arguing when it shouldn't be. I'm a pleasant driver. When I was a bus driving was pleasant. The best job out of all the jobs I ever had was bus driving. And I was a bus driver here in Michigan for Smart. Shout out to Smart Macomb Terminal. Woo, woo. This Betty Boop, giving y'all a shout out. Though they didn't hire me back after what happened to me at Chrysler. So I got to give you thumbs down on that, the way you treated me after I tried to return back there after what Chrysler did. But the best driving job I've ever had when I got in the commercial industry was bus driving. It's laid back, relaxed. As long as you do your portion of your job, bus driving as a people, you got to be able to interact with the public. You got to know your passengers. You got to be able to read your passengers. You got to understand your passengers, which I did. I did all that. Okay, you may have altercation here and there, but that's normal dealing with the public. You're dealing with different attitudes and different natures. Things going on with people approaching you when they get on the bus. They can be angry about something. And next thing you know, something come out their mouth, it's like they angry at you. But they really not angry at you. It's something that didn't happen. And you hear the frustration come out when they around you. That's all it is. But bus driving out of my commercial history, it's been the best driving job I've ever had. No stress, never failed a physical, never had to be, though the bus driving physical requirements is totally different than truck driving. Let's put that out there. It's a little different. They don't put all that emphasis on certain things when you're in bus driving. But the trucking industry, stressful. My take on it, if I knew it was going to lead to repetitive searches for employment, constant status where I have a loss of income, my livelihood is in jeopardy, my housing in jeopardy because I can't pay the bills. If I knew it was going to lead to that, I would have never got in this industry. I'd have just took something. I could do anything. Multi-talented. I write, I draw, I do everything. I'm multi-talented. There's nothing that I can't do. But there's things I'm not going to do. I'm not going to physically overly exert myself. That I'm not going to do. I'm not going to continue to hang around in a stressful situation. That is why I quit. Because I know if I continue to stay there, it's going to lead to possibly a real serious medical condition where now I can't work. I'm being evicted, probably being in a shelter, living on the streets. Trucking is that industry that does that to drivers. Drivers have been abandoned in states. Drivers have been told to turn in their trucks with nowhere to go, no money. I have been that driver several times over in the trucking industry. It shouldn't be going on. They recruited you from your home and stranded you in another state. You know what type of feeling that is to be sitting on your truck? You get that message that's telling you they finna get rid of you. You ain't even got your check. You ain't got no money. You ain't even at home. You ain't got no money saved up. That's what trucking does. This industry does that on a constant basis, and I've seen that. So, and it has led to my decision that if it don't change in the next couple of months, it's time for me to go ahead and get out of it. Because you see me now. All my videos I've been making, some aggravation, something going on with trucking. But that's what I wanted this Dirty Trucking show to be about. To show the real aggravation in trucking. Nobody talks about this. But you get on here and talking about, well, if you, what was one driver told me? When I posted that video about the, you got to get the loads in and they were speeding to get these loads in and you get paid by the load. He said, don't hate the player, hate the game. What the fuck? If I got to sit there and watch somebody do something improper, knowing you getting tickets just to get your loads in, and you telling me don't hate the player, hate the game. What the fuck? That means you that type of driver. You like doing that type of shit. I don't get the competition. My record is impeccable in trucking. But yet look at me. Look at me. Due to jealousy, due to envy, due to a lot of other things that is contributing in the trucking. I'm not an ugly driver. Let's put that out there. And I've had instances when I got to these companies, they saw what I look like, the game's begun, the charades begun, the shenanigans happen. Even with these physicals. Look at me. Let me walk in. They're going to look at me, oh, she can't be no truck driver. We going to do shit to make it seem like she going to fail her physicals and all. That's what was happening. I don't have high blood pressure. But I can't even begin to explain to you what was happening when I was going in there right before those physicals. It was impossible for that shit to be going on. And until they come clean with what the fuck you were really doing to me and how you were causing that, it ain't gonna stop. Look at me. I'm a perfect driver who is ready. I'm only 52. And who is ready to get out of the trucking industry because of all of this stress. Look at me. The past few videos, you all have watched my videos. And I know you can attest. This is the calmest you've ever heard me. Because I am not in anybody's trucking job. I can't deal with that stress. I don't want the aggravation. I don't want the problems. I don't want to be dealing with the bad equipment because you are deliberately neglecting to keep your equipment fixed. Or you are deliberately ignoring my write-ups about getting your equipment fixed. And it's a very stressful industry. Trucking is very stressful. And until you start addressing these issues, you start listening to why your drivers are leaving, or you start listening to these even the altercations and the arguments you need to listen to. Don't go in there jumping down your driver's throat, talking about your behavior before you find out the facts. That's the person I am. Had they done it at my previous job, I wouldn't have quit. I would have still been there. But you let the one that caused the problem stay there. Act like he ain't did shit and then focused on me cussing him out, because that's exactly what the fuck I did. I cussed him out. I was to the point I was done with that shit. I'm not going to keep approaching you about a portion of your job to do that I need you to do to get me going. And then you fly off the handle. I got to hear your threatening tone about what you ain't going to do, trying to make me be afraid to approach you to do your damn job because your job needs to be done for me to do my job. I'm not going to deal with that goddamn shit on nobody's fucking job. Period. I will quit. So, this is Dirty Trucking on my take on the trucking industry. It's a very stressful industry until these fleet companies and owners actually start addressing what's going on here, stopping the stress that's being caused on the drivers, addressing the issues that the drivers are actually really having. Stop focusing that the driver is irate. You think we don't need this type of person at the company? Yes. Take a step back. Listen to what the hell is going on. Listen to what your drivers said has happened. If you accurately hear what's going on, then you will accurately hear the problem. This is Dirty Trucking. Been my take on the trucking industry. Dirty Trucking out. Hope you like it.